The fact is, if they are breaking the law, they need to be captured and they need to be punished. There it is, right there. It's that simple. And we have rules. We have laws about those kinds of things. And they know them. They know the penalties. So if in fact you decide to break the law, you're taking a big risk. If you decide as a slave that you are going to run away, you face the possibility of being captured and killed. This second reading that we heard tonight, Paul's letter to Philemon, it's a very, very short book of Scripture. There's only 25 verses in it. And we only get to hear it at Mass about once every 3 years when it comes around in the particular cycle. And when we proclaim it at Mass, it feels just a little bit weird. That feeling that you get when you're reading somebody else's mail. That's what this feels like. Paul, who's in prison, writes a letter to one of his followers, one who has embraced the faith through Paul, a man by the name of Philemon. Philemon had a slave named Onesimus who ran away, who went and found Paul in his captivity. And Paul and Onesimus became very, very close. So we have this letter that got included in our books of Scripture. Paul writes to Philemon and says, Onesimus has been with me for some time. I cherish him very much. But I am sending him back to you. I'm asking him to return to you. By right, you can have him put to death, as so many other slave owners would. Got to make a point. Got to provide a deterrent to other runaway slaves. Paul says, I recognize that you have that right. But I'm going to ask two things of you. I'm going to ask that you receive him back and not punish him. Whether you think he deserves it or not. And secondly, and this is something, Philemon, I really want you to search your heart, to come to an understanding of what your faith calls you to. And I'm going to ask that you consider not just accepting him back to be your slave once again, but accepting him back and treating him as a free person. That goes beyond anything that the law requires you to do. I'm asking that in your goodness, you consider doing something far greater than just the minimum. And notice that Paul asks it of him, but he doesn't demand it. He doesn't put it on him as his mentor or his patron. He doesn't say, okay, sending him back, this is what I want you to do. I did not want to do anything without your consent, so that the good you do might not be forced, but voluntary. Those are amazing words. What you do in your faith, you do not out of force or threat or fear, but you make the more loving choice. What a concept. What a concept for we people who, many of us grew up with an understanding of the church as being about the laws and the rules. Many who still, even today, will come to the sacrament of confession and just confess something they didn't do, even though the rule says they should do it. But as long as they keep the rules, that's all that matters, right? Paul is saying no. Jesus in the gospel is saying no. How much have so many of us lived our lives as Catholics with the fear deep down inside, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to avoid doing whatever, because I don't want to go to hell. I'm afraid of being punished. Having that kind of a threat hanging over us has nothing to do with the freedom of the children of God that we receive in the sacrament of baptism. When love or loyalty is forced, it's not real. We have, just to give you one example, we have an expression, or we have a thing in the church, the Holy Day of Obligation. You need to come to Mass. We are having this wonderful celebration of one of the great realities of our faith, whether it has something to do with our Blessed Mother and the wonderful example she gave us, or the saints, whatever it might be. Of course you would want to come to Mass and celebrate that and enter into it with a joyful heart. But just in case, if you don't, you better be there anyway. It's your obligation. If you don't, you're in trouble. The freedom of God's children. No. Christ calls us to allow our best to come forth. That's what freedom is. Freedom is not, oh, I can do whatever I want. Nobody can tell me what to do. That's not what freedom is all about. Freedom is so that I can respond to God of my own choice. I can do it out of love. I can do it from the heart. And that's what brings out the best that is in us. And that's what we're called to. The good that you do might not be forced, but voluntary. That's what makes us more human. And ultimately, it's what we need to find. Many years ago, an American principal once told her staff, "I'm a survivor of a concentration camp. My eyes saw what no person should witness. Gas chambers built by learned engineers, children poisoned by educated physicians, infants killed by trained nurses, women and babies shot and burned by high school and college graduates. So I'm a little suspicious of education. My request to you, my teachers, my staff, is help your students become human. Your efforts must never produce learned monsters, skilled psychopaths, educated Eichmanns. Reading, writing, and arithmetic are important only if they serve to make our children more human. To go beyond the law, to go beyond the threat, to truly respond and live and care for one another out of genuine love. That's the challenge of the cross. Paul asked it of Philemon. Christ asks it of us. Because that is how we will follow in his steps.